So today we are going to go do an intro for N8N. It's a brand new software that's actually been around for quite a while. But today we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive with a brand expert that knows this tool like the back of his hand. I'm excited to bring on Mario Aldayuz, and he's going to come in and he's going to talk about who he is, what he's bringing to the table, and more importantly, about this incredible tool that he actually helped me kind of understand. He's kind of been my coach throughout this whole thing. And when I tell you he knows this thing for everything that they possibly can do, you guys are going to see some pretty crazy things that this tool can use. And we're going to give you a little intro into the tool to kind of help you build your first automation. So without further ado, Mario, I pronounced your name wrong. I completely murdered it, but you're going to correct me anyway. So it's Mario Aldayuz, and he'll correct me again because I'm dyslexic in nature, like everybody knows. But at least, Mario here, tell us a little bit about you with your pronunciation so I don't get that wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually Mario Aldayuz.
Aldayuz. There we go.
Yep. So it's funny you call me Mario. It must be like a Jersey thing.
It is a Jersey thing, 100%.
But it's funny because I used to call you Nuno until I kept saying Nuno on a call with Matt. And Matt finally stopped me and was like, dude, all right, if you're going to go on live with Nuno, you have to pronounce it Nuno. And so I've been like beating it into my head. I'm like, all right, it's Nuno, it's Nuno, it's Nuno. So I was like walking around my apartment earlier being like, Nuno. So if you felt your
it's between my name and your name, we're like a disaster. So that's awesome. So actually, he brings up a good case in point. Both of us kind of do a lot of work with HL Pro Tools. Mario works full time with them. He's one of the coaches there, another tech coach, just like myself. Does an incredible job. And I can't even see it, that you're going to have to beat out Mario out of me because I'm so used, because I have a lot of Mario friends from Portugal. So good, Mario. So he introduced me to a tool called N8N. Now, N8N has actually been around for a long time. You educated me on that because I thought it was like a brand new tool, but it's been getting really popular over the last several, I would say probably months in the last year, because people are doing some pretty crazy things with it. And it's getting very close to energetic like agents and the things that you can do with it with very little kind of pull and weaves and all that. But I got to be honest, you got to kind of see what it's all about. So Mario, one, tell us a little bit about you. I know we both are in HL Pro Tools and we love it. We hang out with Matt all the time. And that's kind of where the introduction happens. But tell us a little bit about you and the tool and kind of how you fell into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been, a little bit of background on me. I am an electrical engineer by trade. Technically, actually, I was just talking to Tiffany, our executive assistant earlier. I'm a test equipment engineer by trade. So when I say test equipment engineer, what that means is I develop, and I used to a long time ago, develop and design equipment and procedures for testing of physical devices, or, that encompasses all sorts of engineering disciplines, everything from electrical, mechanical, chemical, wireless, radio frequency, like all different kinds of stuff, microwave. And what that gave me was a systems level perspective of the world. So my buddy always says that I see the matrix. And when he says I see the matrix, what he means is that I have a very unique ability to essentially analyze and understand things at a systems level. And when you see things that way, you understand how everything works together. You understand how each individual piece plays a part of the whole. I digress to saying that in understanding that, N8N or Nation, whatever it's called, we need to find out. We need to ask N8N.
We really do. It's so funny. I was talking to Matt, and first of all, you're talking to a dyslexic guy, so N8N is a nightmare. That is by far, you give me letters and numbers like that combined, it's like my worst nightmare. So then I was talking to Matt, and I was he was making fun of me. He's like, dude, it's Nation.
Yeah.
And if you really look at it, it does look like it's Nation, like N-Nation. And I'm like, all right. And then I go into a group and I'm like, hey guys, is it really Nation? He's like, oh my God, I think you're right. So everybody's like, nobody knows. So
as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to send them an email and I'm going to ask. I'm going to be like, okay, that's all. It's going to be like, is it Nation or N8N? And they're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's so dumb. But,
we're making up our own rules, we're just going to make a name for it.
They should have just called it Nation at that point. That should be the look.
Great. It would be the best thing ever. And you'd be smart for figuring out, I see the 8 and the Asian, but whatever. But
anyway,
regardless of which, so electrical tester, And like I was joking around before because you were telling me that. I'm like, right. So if there was ever an apocalypse, we know that we got to go to Mario because he's going to be the guy that's going to create the solar panels and the radios and their microwaves and everything we need to get back to civilization. So
pretty much, man. I mean, I build all kinds of crazy stuff.
Got to show him off a little bit. I don't know how much you can get into it, and I don't want to get too deep into that hole. But Mario's developing is like literally, we're just going to call it his own phone, and it's bananas. I don't want to get into it. It's a top secret project. If you want to showcase it off and kind of show it off a little bit,
I don't mind at all. So essentially, what it is it's this little device right here, which in production will be in a nice case, and it'll have a little antenna sticking out of it. But what it is a replacement for a cell phone in the capacity of business to customer texting. Because right now, the only solutions available require you to have a physical Android phone. But the whole point of the project, aside from wanting to get rid of my bat phone, as I call it, because I have two cell phones, because I run all of my SMSs through the Android, which allow me to like bypass A2P and a bunch of other stuff. And obviously I'm still, TCPA compliant and have the opt-out keywords and all the other things, for those legalese people that get all, up in arms when I talk about this. But this will allow people to basically plug the device into a wall. It phones home to the cloud, and you can send text messages through an application in the cloud or through high level. But it ended up being more than that. So the way that I wrote, and it's called IoT, the way that I wrote the IoT software is essentially a socket connection between the cloud and the device. What that means in layman's terms is there's basically a virtual tunnel between the two. The device phones home and joins a virtual room, and the cloud can communicate with the device, and likewise the device can communicate with the cloud without ever disconnecting.
Almost so like an operator, like an old school operator that's like connecting the switch phones.
100%.
And just to keep it super simple, and again, not getting into this massive rabbit hole because it's a massive project that you've been working on for quite some while, he literally built this from scratch. So that's the level of intelligence I'm bringing to you all here. That's who Mario is. This is why I like to get to know Mario in a deeper level, because this guy's making phones. I'm like playing with AI agents thinking I'm smart, and this guy's building phones from scratch. So just to kind of understand all of that.
The actual software layer itself, and this is the one piece, and then we can jump into N8N, but we're talking about AI and how powerful AI is. So I actually built the entire software layer for the cloud and the device in about 20 hours over a weekend. It's roughly 22,000 lines of code, somewhere in there. And human wise, that's impossible. Like, you cannot write code that you physically can't type that fast, but AI can. And so my rules for the project were it has to be 100% AI generated. I'm not allowed to go into the code base and edit anything. And I'm a software developer as well. So that was really frustrating. The other rule was I had to use the same AI model for the entire application. I couldn't switch models. It had to be the same one. So the actual software side for both the device and the cloud is 100% AI generated, which is insane. And it's fully functional.
That's amazing.
Anyways, let's jump into N8N, man. We got some cool things to show today. So
I'll actually turn it over to you. So again, what is N8N? Like in general, like what would you consider it?
Yeah, so it's an automations and integrations platform. It's a universal connector. So it's able to handle API requests from a variety. An API request is an application programming interface request that is basically a communication between two applications, right? So it can be a communication between, high level and a database. It can be a communication between Google Sheets and your browser window. All of those are API requests. So all communications on the internet run through, by and large, API requests. There are some exceptions to that rule, but we won't get into that. Anyways, if you're familiar with Zapier and Make, I kind of talk about it like this. Zapier is like the toddler, if you will, of integrations, in that it's capable of doing a lot of different things. It's probably the most supported of the applications, just like you would, you have to give a kid a lot of support, right? So that's why I call it a toddler. But it's the most supported of the applications. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry that develops an application makes a Zapier integration, right? The challenge is if you need to go outside of the Zapier ecosystem, it's very challenging. And it's also not really very flexible as an application, especially for longer workflows and scenarios. So that's when you get into make.com, which is this right here. Okay. And make.com does a lot of things really well that Zapier doesn't. And Zapier is also the most expensive of the platforms, by the way. So make.com is a little bit cheaper than Zapier, or a lot cheaper than Zapier, but it requires a lot more technical competency and knowledge. Now, if you want to use make.com, the Make Academy is absolutely amazing. I took the Integromat Academy back when it was Integromat, which is now make.com. But Make is a more advanced automations platform that still has a lot of application support modules in place. So you can get a module for high level or a module for OpenAI, or even some of the more obscure software. Generally speaking, they start with the Zapier module and then they make a Make module, right? Now, Make is also a cloud-hosted solution, just like Zapier. So that means that you can't edit the code. You can create your own modules, but they have to be within the confines of Make's rules, and they have to be structured a certain way, all of these different things. And you can't run custom code. So there you have some limitations, right? Then you get into N8N, and N8N is the highest level of automations application short of an actual automations server, which is like an app that you build that has very specific purposes, right? And typically doesn't have a graphical user interface, or we'll call it a GUI in the future. But essentially, N8N is the highest level of automations platform on the market, and it's free, which is crazy.
So let me kind of jump in here, because again, being a newbie, right? N8N, you can go into their own hosted environment and you can pay, I think it's like $20 a month. But also, and I want to kind of mention this, and I'm going to pop a little link for you real quick. So Mario actually is teaching me this, and you can self-host and take the application that N8N is and put it into your own server that you can host. Now, what Mario specializes in, and he does offer this services, and you guys can go ahead and click on either the link at the bottom or here. Mario does offer this service where he does set this up for you in your own self-hosted environment. And all you got to do is pay the hosting costs of the server, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a space on the internet. You have to rent it. There's nothing around it. But he puts a bunch of goodies in there, and he makes it where this thing does what it needs to do at the highest level possible. And again, it just gives you the application, because if you decide to get N8N on the web, and you can probably start there and figuring it out. Go ahead, Mayor.
So thank you for that shout out, by the way. I love setting up N8N self-hosted servers. And I am a big fan of spending less money on things and having things be as efficient as possible. So all you need to set up an N8N server is a free N8N license. I usually prefer DigitalOcean, anywhere from $25 to $50 a month. So the cheapest plan on Make is like, let's take a look here at pricing. The cheapest plan on Make, you get free for 1,000 operations a month, or $9 for 10,000 operations. But obviously there's limited features, right? And the make.com that most people subscribe to is Pro or Teams. And so for a monthly price, you're looking at $18 to $34 for just 10,000 operations. Now, really quick, I want to explain what an operation is, okay? So in both N8N and Make, an operation is one execution of each one of these different nodes. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, roughly 20 something executions that happen per record that's passed through Make. Okay. So I would eat up 10,000 executions very quickly. And I have hundreds of scenarios that I run. So for perspective, I actually use about 1 million.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'm running about probably 10 million operations a month. Right now, I scaled it down from 30 million operations a month down to just 10 million operations, because I actually cut a lot out of the scenario that eats up a lot of those ops. So for me to do that, it actually costs me, because my server has to be a little bit beefier to run that many operations. It costs me about $400 a month versus $10,000 a month at minimum.
And in all honesty, if you were in Zapier, it probably cost you like close to $30,000-$40,000.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't even know if
I don't even go that far.
Let's do, so the most expensive Zapier plan for 2 million, let's do 2 million tasks is about 4,000 a month. So for me to run that for about between 12 and 14,000 a month, somewhere in there.
That's insane.
So if you look at this scenario in Make, so this is called a scenario, right? I refer to scenarios in N8N, scenarios in Zapier, and scenarios in Make all synonymously. It's a combination of individual, what I call cards, okay? They're called modules sometimes, they're called cards, they're called all sorts of different things, but I call them cards personally. So from here forward, I'll just refer to them as cards. So this operation right here relies heavily on OpenAI and takes about 15 seconds to execute. Now that's normally not bad. The problem is this specific scenario, like it says in the title, is an appointment booking scenario. Oof. Now, who wants to sit on their cell phone with a voice AI and spend 15 seconds on the phone, right? Waiting for the voice AI to respond. It's awkward, okay? And not only that, but if there's 15 seconds of silence, the AI oftentimes will actually try and fill that silence by saying something like, "Are you still there?" Which then it throws it off the rails, right? So N8N runs totally differently, and I have full control over this application. So this is the same scenario that I run in Make, but converted it into N8N or Nation's cards, and it operates in about 1.2 seconds.
Wow. So this whole thing is going to operate that fast.
Exactly. And that's because you have the ability to do a bunch of things you can't in Make. Like I wrote all of this code for each one of these different modules that have the curly brackets. And each one of these performs a specific function inside of the scenario, and they execute in about 100 milliseconds each. So my cumulative time is only the round trip time for the API call to high level, which is about 1.2 seconds. Everything else executes almost instantly. But this performs the same purpose of the user says, "I'd like to book Monday at 3 p.m. And it goes and says, "Okay, is there an available time slot in the calendar? And what time zone are they in? Okay, there is an available slot. I'm going to book that slot," which is where it goes to respond with booked. Or where it gets really complex is if there's not an available slot, it has to go and get the free slots and then determine what are the most probable slots, which is all again done in JavaScript. What are the most probable slots that would fit the user based on their request? So that's what this scenario does. And like I said, it executes in about 1.2 seconds. This took me cumulatively between the Make scenario, the N8N scenario, writing all the code, and the testing. It's about 60 hours of development. And there's a whole snapshot that I sell for what's called VAPI, VAPI, which is the most powerful voice AI system on the market. There is a snapshot that I offer. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to set up a consultation. But let's get into what people really want to see, which is how to build something in N8N. So this is a blank canvas. So go ahead and Nuno, give me a scenario that you'd like me to build. Just something easy, like let's work through it together.
Well, it's funny. So we had this request and I thought it was pretty fun. Somebody said, I wanted to create like a second brain, a place where I can store information that I can just easily get. So for instance, if I'm on the road and, I'm about to book a flight, what's my TSA number? Nobody ever remembers their TSA number. Then I can either fetch the information and just send it back to me, if that's an easy one. Or
I love that.
Social media. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's do that one. That actually sounds like really fun. And that is also something that I have to work through in my brain on how we'd accomplish it. So between the two of us, and by the way, guys, like I know Nuno was, buttering my biscuits a little bit earlier, but he too is one of the smartest people I have ever met and is really good at what he does. And also, I love watching his coaching calls. If you do not subscribe to Pro Tools or you're not in the SaaS Insiders Club, you're missing out because Nuno gives incredible value every week on AI, on building stuff in high level. I mean, all kinds of things. So kudos to him, definitely one of the top coaches. And you have a way of explaining things as well that I really appreciate because you don't make me feel like I'm dumb and you don't make me feel like it's over my head. You actually help me to understand why I'm doing something and how I'm doing something. So definitely, guys, go subscribe. If you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel. But let's get started, man.
I actually built a little one of this. So here's the way I did it. And obviously, you're going to put the Mario juice into it. So I did it where I was using Telegram. I was putting in a simple request to Telegram. And then from Telegram, it went to OpenAI, AI agent. And then from the AI agent, I have a database, guys. We don't have to make it complicated, but you can put like Airtable or Google Sheet, anything that can store and retrieve data, whatever is going to be the easiest out of that. And I built it. And again, I'm still a newbie in this particular thing. It's working great. The only thing I can't do is I can't get it to post a record in there. I can only get it to retrieve whatever's in there, which is working out pretty well. So
cool. That's
kind of like what we did. So you can use like Telegram. I don't know if you have it on your system, but it's got like bot father. You can create a little bot. It's usually pretty quick.
Yeah. So for this use case, I think probably the best one.
Chat. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is the chat message. So we'll make this chat publicly available. And this is called a trigger, right, guys? So a trigger, just like in high level, if you are a high level user or if you've used Make or Zapier, everything has a trigger associated with it, right? So that trigger can be a webhook call. It can be a chat inbound. It can be a variety of different things. Now, I am very much a stickler about naming things.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to name this my personal assistant. And I'm actually going to integrate this with Slack eventually, but we'll start with just doing the when chat message is received. So this trigger, right? If I type in hello, nothing happens. Okay, because there's no action associated with this trigger. So what we're going to do is we need to do a couple things, right? We need to talk to the AI, right? We need to have some question and answer, some Q&A capability. Now, you mentioned not being able to post records to the database. I want to figure out if we can work through that together, but you want to be able to retrieve some information. So I am going to go a little bit more complicated in what I'm building in this capacity because I want to show you the power of what it can do. And this is all things that you should be able to do with a little bit of Googling and some YouTubing, or if you're interested in it, or ask AI. And also I do run, it's on my link tree. I run free coaching sessions 4 times a week, 5 times a week. So I have all sorts of coaching opportunities. They are totally free and open to the public. So I have Mondays is open troubleshooting and question and answer. That's where we do live builds. We troubleshoot stuff in high level. I have Tuesday, which is advanced AI and N8N training. I have Wednesday, which is GHL and HLPT and Zappy Chat Town Hall. And then I have Friday, which is our SaaS and business coaching. And I have a bonus AI call on Wednesdays as well. And that's for SaaS insiders only. So let's go ahead and add. So you have over here, these are called actions. Okay, guys. And so when you think about how your automation is going to be structured, what I recommend doing is using something like Mermaid Charts or using Lucid Chart or Chart.io, whatever, charting tool you want. If you're beginning in automations, you need to map out your automation, right? So we're going to do Mermaid Chart.
And by the way, just a little insider tip for anybody that's brand new and you're like, oh, this sounds already too complex. Don't make it complex. Get a Post-it note. I have little square Post-it notes and put them right in front of your computer and literally just, okay, my first step is this. My second step is this. My third step is this. My fourth step is this. And you can create a very quick and easy path so it doesn't overcomplex and get your brain. Now, obviously, like I said, Mario is super advanced and smart, and he's been doing this for years. To him, this is like second nature. For you all that are just starting out, remember the goal right now, what we want to do is like, we want to be able to like grab information that's out there and send it back to us of things that we might need. And we want to be able to post information in. So all we got to do is basically create like a little bit of a visual path so our brain and also the tool, so we can kind of understand it. Now, what's cool about this thing is that, I don't know if you guys saw it real quick in Mermaid, another tool, if you guys want to check it out. All he did was create a little work and then it kind of did the rest, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I always like showing off different tools because I think it helps people to discover and expand. But Nuno's absolutely right in that I actually have a whiteboard in my office. I have a virtual whiteboard and I have my Oculus, which I use as a virtual whiteboard. And I have a bunch of other like Post-it notes, like there's sticky notes all over my desk, aside from business cards and empty coffee cups, and a bunch of electronics hardware and a soldering iron. But there are also
all common things that everybody has on their desk.
I know, right? Like you got to have a variable power supply and a soldering iron on your desk, right? But I also have Post-it notes all over the place. And I love just like, I have, a pretty wide monitor. So I just put in order. I start at the beginning and then I give it an end. Okay. And then you fill in between.
Yep.
That's the best way to do it. And you're going to vapor lock, which when I say vapor lock, it's like, I guess maybe it's a military term, but we always talk about vapor locking in the capacity that just like a diesel engine, you get like frustrated or you get stuck. And when you get stuck, you don't know where to go. And then you just shut down. Okay. Don't do that because you just have to incrementally step through a process in your head. And what you don't know, platforms like ChatGPT and Claude and Manus and Bolt and even N8N's AI can actually teach you how to do these different steps. The majority of what I learned, everything I learned in N8N, everything I learned as a software developer, including also how to ride a motorcycle, I learned off of YouTube.
So was a little brave. That probably on the lowest part of my list. Nobody recommending this at home. Don't learn how to drive a motorcycle from YouTube.
I turned 18. YouTube had just come out. I turned 18 and I bought a motorcycle to stick it to my parents and then realized when it got delivered, I didn't know how to ride it.
That is the best story. And you YouTubed how to ride it.
So I ran inside and I YouTubed how to ride the motorcycle, got on and took off.
That's awesome.
So anyways, I don't recommend doing that. I've been in 5 motorcycle accidents. I've been riding for 20 something years. And I also, rode on a track and stuff like that, which counted for the majority of my accidents. But anyways, I digress to say, don't get vapor locked. It is okay to need to learn. I call it JIT learning, JIT, just in time learning. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to do just in time learning and learn specific components of what you need. And this also applies to high level. Learn specific components of what you need. And over time, you will amass a vast knowledge of how to use a platform. You just have to start somewhere and learn something and take one step forward. So anyways, I talk a lot, but let's get back into building. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this action card, which is an AI agent. But actually, I want question and answer, I think would be probably the best one. So we have a connected chat to the trigger node. We have a prompt right here. And then we have our model we're going to attach. And a model there's obviously, you can see a bunch of different models in here. These models are what AI you are going to actually use. So that model that we're going to use is going to be an OpenAI chat model. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up GPT. Actually, I don't know if I have 4.5 enabled on this one yet. Oh, I do. So I'm going to use 4.5. I don't really need to set any other parameters. I'm going to move this card over here. And I'm going to rename this OpenAI GPT 4.5. And I'm going to rename this one my personal assistant. Okay. And then I have a retriever, right? And we're going to use, in this case, a vector store retriever, right? So this vector store retriever is going to be a vector is a mathematically computed representation of content, whether that's of data in general, right? So it can be a mathematical computation of text, of image, of a variety of different things based on the data that is put into it. So the vector is where if you were to tell the AI to search through, tons and tons and tons of text to find a specific piece of information, what would happen is one, you'd hit the token and context window, and two, which means you'd run out of space in the AI's brain, right? So that's token and context window. And then not just that, it would cost you a lot of money and time because the AI would have to use a bunch of tokens, and tokens are little chunks of data. It's about 3/4 of a word is a token. So you'd run out of tokens and you'd run out of its context window. And then on top of that, it would take forever and it would cost a lot of money. So when you use vector stores and you give AI information, it converts it into vectors and then does a semantic, or there's different types, BM25, hybrid, all that stuff. I'm not going to get into explaining all that, but look it up on YouTube or Ask AI. And the vector store retriever is actually able to find that data super quickly that is closest to the association of the vectors it was given in its embeddings. Okay. So the vector store retriever that we're going to use is going to be Quadrant. You can use Pinecone or Supabase. Supabase is probably the easiest one. Quadrant is free, which is one of the reasons why I recommend it. So I am going to go into my Quadrant account and we need to create some information.
Now, can it write and retrieve on this, Mario?
We're going to show you how to do that.
So it's so much cooler talking to somebody smarter than you because then you get all this stuff. So vector database, so everybody understands, when I was working for Capital One and the banking industry, this is something they invested a lot of money into because of, again, what Mario says. Just think of it, an ability of storing memory and a lot of memory in a very small amount of space with the ability of retrieving it faster than you would normally, like in your hard drive or whatever else. And in bigger organizations and corporations and all that, understand that this is like next level stuff and how far this thing can go. So it is pretty up there. But again, another level of complexity, not going to get into it, but just understand it's pretty huge.
Yep. So we're going to create a free cluster, and that's going to give me an API key. For those of you who are like, oh my God, he just exposed his API key to the internet. And for YouTube's purposes, because YouTube does actually check this, I am going to burn this cluster when I am done. So any API keys or credentials I show you will be changed. So if you're a hacker, don't bother writing this down. It's not going to be worth your time.
And not even that, we'll also blur it on top of it, just in case everything else. And also to avoid us not going down.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to copy this and put this into my Quadrant API key. So I'm going to replace that API key. Save this, retry. I need to grab my Quadrant URL. So let me grab that Quadrant URL and go back into N8N. And I'm going to save this. Now I got my connection tested successfully. So I'm going to call this Quadrant API dash my personal assistant. And that is going to be for that specific thing. I don't need to update my password. Now I have a list of collections. Now a collection, guys, is if I go into Quadrant and I go into my dashboard, I need to put in my API key. So I'm going to drop that API key in there really quick. And I'm going to load some sample data, or you have quick start. So you can create a collection. You can call it star charts. You can call it a variety of different things. With this, you have in your collections, you can create snapshots. Now, one of the advantages to some of the other embedding vector platforms is that you can really easily load in documents and things like that. So Retrieval is another one that's really easy to load documents, but I don't believe Retrieval is supported. I don't believe Retrieval is supported in N8N. So you'd have to run a manual one on that, and we're not going to get into that. But I'm going to go ahead and load in some dummy data. So I'm going to go back into my dashboard, load sample data, and load this snapshot. And that's going to give me a response of okay, meaning that it's loaded a mid-journey collection, and it's using cosine distance, vector size of 512. Let's look at our collection called mid-journey. It's got an image, different images, right? So remember how I said it can be images or it can be, code. It can be a bunch of different things. This loaded in a bunch of mid-journey content. And it also loaded in the URLs as well, the name. So you can store all kinds of data inside of vectors. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into N8N and we are going to go into that Quadrant. We're going to choose our collection called Midjourney. You have some different options in here of what you can do. You don't need to necessarily put those in. The AI is going to take care of some of that. We also need to select an embeddings model. So in this case, I'm going to use OpenAI, and I am going to use the embeddings large. And what we're going to do is now we have our embeddings, we have our vector store, and we have our...
So what are embeddings, Mario?
Embeddings are how it creates the vectors and things like that. So there's a long technical explanation. I highly recommend if you
No,
want
but I'm glad you didn't. So that works. Sorry, just don't worry about it. Just you need it. Got it.
What we're going to do is we're going to test it now. We're going to say, I want to know what kinds of photos you have. And so it says bad request, right? So wrong input, vector dimensions error, expected dimension 512 got 3072, time, blah, 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 blah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to troubleshoot. And guys, this is probably the most important part of what you need to know about N8N is it's okay for it to be broken, okay? Because you will figure out ways to solve that problem by, again, Googling it. So let's look at the documentation really quick. And N8N has really good documentation.
And even for a person who's like kind of new at this, like I got to be honest, like 9 times out of 10, I either use like AI to help it or I come in here directly. And I got to be honest, for somebody, you just got to know a little tech know-how. But again, if you don't understand anything, I will copy this and I'll put it into any kind of AI and say, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And it will do exactly that.
The other thing is ChatGPT is actually contextually aware of N8N. So let's do this. I'm using N8N and Quadrant plus OpenAI. I need to figure out why I am getting this error. Now I know how to solve this problem, but I want to show you guys my learning process. Nuno said I have basically 2 hours to, teach you guys some stuff. So I'm going to show you guys my actual learning process, and I'll do that in kind of short bits. So I use ChatGPT o3 Mini High. I use Claude Model 3.7 under extended in style of explanatory. And I test these different AIs to understand more about how to basically figure out the solution to the problem. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go into that error. So I want to take a look at that error, which I can do. That's execution error. Which one's going to give me the actual error output? Logs, bad request, output. That's the response. So if I go to executions, I need to find retriever output, error details. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into ChatGPT and just paste that.
And I do the same thing, guys. This is how I solve things. This is how I come up with solutions. This is how I don't take a no for an answer. And I keep going. And I do exactly what Mario does. I go from here and I will go to Claude. I will go to OpenAI. I'll go to Grok. I'll go to anything to get my answer. And whatever gives me the best answer wins.
So it says that the vector generated by the OpenAI integration doesn't match the configuration of the Quadrant. Embedding model mismatch. This is the first opportunity. I'm getting 3072 dimensions. I need 512 dimensions. So then I can ask it, what embedding model has 512 dimensions? And it's reasoning, it's searching, it's learning. We'll give it a second. But this is just amazing how far AI has come just in the last 4 or 5 years. You got to think ChatGPT 2, 3.5 were really dumb AIs, right? Now, they were still groundbreaking for the time, but now these AIs are capable of actually logically stepping through, which is what it's doing right now. So it's giving me different options. Now, we know that we need to look at the embeddings in OpenAI. We have, I'm going to go into editor, go into the embeddings, dimensions, and I'm going to select 512. Okay, now when I open this chat and I say, what kind of images do you have?
Now AI is taking over what you're not seeing right now. And if you could just lower your screen just a little bit, you see what it's doing? It did. It responded back, but you saw the steps. It basically went from the chat to the agent, from the agent to the model to kind of go back and forth like, hey, what do I have to do here? And then it followed the vector database and it started going in a row. Now, I know that we talked about like kind of the steps, right, that we were talking about, and we talked about the post-it notes. Well, those are the steps that it's taking. For anybody that was listening, again, the big part of it, I always like to think of these things as dominoes. The first action was the chat, and then all these little dominoes are falling in place based on the order that he put it into. And that's kind of what it is. And for anybody looking at the screen, we now have a response based on what he did.
So the next thing you can do is you can actually add, so let's search Quadrant, vector store. You can add documents to the vector store. And you can retrieve documents. You can retrieve documents as an AI agent for a tool. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. So I can upload things to the collection for Midjourney. And so, Nuno, this is how you would default document loader, type of data. We'll do binary, input data, add option. Don't need that. Embedding. OpenAI, going to use large dimensions, 512. All right. So what we've done is we're going to do a token splitter, and we'll start with 1,000 chunk size. What this does is now the AI is able to communicate with the vector store. So in the chat now, I think in the actual hosted version, you can upload. Not registered. Oh, I know why. Okay, so you can't upload documents.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, but you can save information in the database this way. So there's a lot of different things that you can do inside of N8N. One of the things that I want to talk about is the N8N templates. And for anyone struggling with building something in N8N or wants to know how to build something in N8N, these N8N templates are one of the most powerful areas because you can just ask it for different things that you want to do. And it will, like you mentioned, a Telegram chatbot, scrape and summarize posts of a news RSS feed, add documents to your N8N workflow, qualify new leads, website content, Google Sheets, form feedback, via GPT.
And a lot of them come with instructions directly on the thing itself. Like, I don't know what you call the platform, the scenario, right? They will come preloaded with like things you can do in little Post-its and stuff. It's really, really cool. The community is amazing. And again, I'm just really happy with this in general. Yeah, you can almost see it. If you see it in there, it has all these like Post-it notes directly in here, which I think is pretty cool. And I got to be honest, this is how I started. I went in and I downloaded a couple of these models and I just made them work. Again, doesn't take a lot. And again, anytime you get lost, not only do they have the help documents right there on something you might get caught up on, like if you wanted to connect your Gmail or you wanted to connect your Excel or whatever it is, or it will automatically have it, which is pretty darn cool. So you're not going to be at a loss of like, well, I don't even know where to start. Just pick one of those templates and start there and just try putting it together and getting it to work. You get that, then move on to try to create your own. And again, do something simpler. We actually went a little bit harder today, but my first one was like, create a chatbot response to a Telegram bot. And honestly, it took me all of like, I think 30 minutes. And I'm brand new to this. I'm not as advanced as Mario is, but it didn't really honestly take that long.
Yeah. So, I mean, building this stuff out, especially if you're using the scenarios, doesn't take long at all. And if you notice, when I imported this scenario, it told me I need Gmail, OpenAI, and Google Sheets access. So I pick my Google Sheets access. I create my credentials for Gmail. I select my OpenAI credential, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. it gives you all of the information you need to be able to, so it tells you how it works. They explain everything to you throughout the entire process.
Yeah, and some of these things are pretty
It's
badass.
super
The
speedy.
scenarios alone, if you guys are into like the marketing world or you're trying to make a little money off of this, you'd be surprised what gold they give you that you literally can sell to clients like complete no brainer. And again, if you use Mario's service, right, get your own self-hosted version of this, there's unlimited executions. You're only paying for the server, which is bananas if you really think about it.
And it's like $25 to $50 a month. I charge around $500 to set it up. It does take a little bit of time on my end, and I put a lot of work into it. But let me show you something really cool, which is this Zoom data pipeline. So this is one thing that we'll talk about really quickly, which is the ability to take all of my Zoom calls. Now you have platforms like Otter and Fathom and things like that that create transcripts for you automatically. But what they don't do is create like action items. Typically, they don't put them in, like it doesn't put them in ClickUp automatically. It doesn't send it to Slack for me. It doesn't write blog posts for me. And there's like tons of stuff that it doesn't do, right? If you use one of those platforms. So what I did is I actually created an integration with Zoom and N8N where running this scenario, you are actually able to classify, digest, create blog posts, create the SEO title and description, create the YouTube description and title, send it to me for approval on Slack, and then it executes another workflow, which is publish video to YouTube for approval, which automatically publishes all of my coaching calls to YouTube.
Very cool.
And all of that took me probably an hour cumulatively to build out both scenarios. Like once you get familiar with the logic behind how this works, building things out is easy. And you have to learn where things are located. That's one of the challenges, is learning like the different terms, but you can always search things. So if you search vector, it's going to give you a list of vector databases. You search database, it's going to give you different database options. So there's all kinds of stuff, and you can see all these different integrations in here. They even have like more agentic AI focused opportunities for things like summarizing text, classifying question and answer, AI agents. So like I could delete this My Personal Assistant and I could drop in here advanced AI agent. And I could say it's a tools agent, conversational agent, OpenAI functions agent, plan and execute, SQL, React agent, all kinds of different things. So we can just say tools agent, connected trigger node, define below. We don't need to define that stuff. We connect our chat model. We connect our memory. Memory would be, we'll do buffer memory. In this case, 100. And we'll do tool. You have all different tools. So I'm going to connect this to the Quadrant vector store. Oh, it wants me to do it this way. Retrieve documents as tool for AI agent. Name of the vector store is My Personal Assistant. Oh, actually, this goes down here to Midjourney. And we can kill this. So we already just built out essentially a chatbot. Now we have an even more advanced chatbot. So we can ask it, what can you do?
This is like, for a person who understands this slightly, like this is amazing. This is great.
And so it's thinking right now. So Nuno was talking about how it's kind of like a domino. Each piece falls down in sequence. What it's doing is it's thinking right now, and then it's responding from its memory. So now we can actually connect it to, should let me connect it. Nope, that's Windows buffer memory. Let me keep this. And I'm going to insert a document, Quadrant vector store, insert documents. Okay. So that's my vector store. You can get many. There's all kinds of stuff you can do in here that power up this AI agent. So let's see what it said. Oh,
Something like you.
no, it does. I just connected it wrong. Add this and chat. So And it's been so long since I built one of these. So make sure the node outputs content to display here. So I can take this, and I know why, because it's a tools agent.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
I have
not
an
going,
AI agent.
yeah, so it's not going to output. What this is going to be used for
No, well, believe it or
is,
not, I have a tool agents too, but I'm using MCPs and it's going back to the chat.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, I definitely have the chat. I have actually 2 of them like that.
So this is what the actual output is. I can help you in
Right.
various ways, including general assistance, explain concepts and topics, assistance with planning and organizing tasks, multimedia visuals, locate and describe images, all sorts of stuff. So we can actually ask it, there we go. Now, if I open this chat and it thinks, I had to set the node here using the respond to webhook node.
That is pretty cool. But again, asking an AI agent what it can do so that it can respond back and do whatever. Yeah, so move forward. There you go.
Yep. There are some little tweaks that need to be made, but it can do creative tasks. It can do all sorts of things. So I'm going to ask it next, what images are in your database? Search the Midjourney collection. So now it's going to search that. It knows now that it needs to use that Quadrant vector store and search information. So you see how it's using the embeddings. It's creating that embedding. It's feeding that back to information. Here's a tool call. It gives you a response, everything like that, puts it in memory. So stores in memory different things that you're communicating with. This is how you build AI agents.
But it's amazing. So to kind of wrap it all up, so you guys seen basically, like, again, the brain thinking on its own, right? You saw the fact of Mario, again, going through the tools and kind of breaking it apart. Biggest lesson about this thing is, and again, I like the way you mentioned it. If you're kind of getting into automations and everything else, you start at Zapier at the toddler level. I love that you call it the toddler. You have like Meg, I guess that's more the analyst. It has a little bit more free thinking, a lot of free will that you can kind of go in there, but you have to have a little tech know-how. And then you got N8 Nation, whatever we decide to call it at any given time, that we're going to find out the truth behind that. And then in there, you have the general ability. You kind of hold this, kind of both of us talked about the same thing about building things in kind of an order of the way you want it, and then just going out there and trying it. We told you about the downloading of the templates. You saw Mario use energetic agents where the agent was figuring out what it needed to do and how to do it. You learned about vector stores, which again blew my mind in understanding how storage is retrieved and put up there. And then on top of it, have Mario's offer. If you want to go out there and kind of like have your own version of this set up for you, Mario does specialize in that. And I definitely want to give him a little bit more of a shout out because again, he's the one that's setting mine up, which again, I'm starting to use a lot more frequently. I'm starting to get really familiar with everything that I'm doing in here. And as always, I don't bring anybody on the show unless they really know what they're talking about and they provide outstanding service. And the fact that he also works with me inside of Pro Tools. And again, we're big fans of Pro Tools and anything you need there. And again, just mentioning again, if you click on that link, you're going to go to his 4 or 5 coaching sessions. 5 if you're in HL Pro Tools at the highest level plan, and then 4 for absolutely free that you can come in here and pick his mind on a lot of this stuff. So guys, I hope you enjoyed. Mario, thank you so much, man, for taking a busy time that you away from what you were doing. Like you're building cell phones and building all these like next level just to spend an hour with us, to educating us. And again, if you don't understand that the kind of like love people have for coaching and helping people, Mario's definitely it. This is his free time that he spent with us to sharing with all of you. So Mario, thank you again from the bottom of my heart, man. This is awesome. I learned a lot today. Hope you guys did. Make sure you look Mario up, attend to some of his live calls. You'll absolutely love it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Follow me on YouTube.